their problems and help them fighting together as a group against this. I'm sure everybody would have their real-time experiences and importance of language technologies to be talked about. FICCI, as FICCI ILIA, has been always working toward this area, and we are already have taken many initiatives. And with the help of our group, as a group, we thought that we will take it further with this, and we'll talk about how this can be further contribute in the time of a pandemic like COVID. With these, I officially welcome you all the panelists. We have Mr. Vivekanan Pani, Mr. Sunil Kulkarni, Mr. Pani from Reverie, Mr. Sunil Kulkarni for software, Mr. Sameera Gupta from ICANN, Apurva from Haptic, and we have Madhu. I'm sorry, Madhu is not visible on my screen. Madhu, and then we have, of course, the moderator for the session, Mr. Udit Tyagi. Everybody, I'll request Udit to take forward the proceedings of the session, and then also request the panelists, once Udit, to self-introduce in a brief one-liner after this. Over to you, Udit, and we really thank you all and look forward to have a really fruitful webinar with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarika. I welcome all of you for this fruitful and eventful session that's been organized by FICCI. And I thank you all esteemed panelists and the audience for taking out time for visiting, for being here on this webinar with us. These are important times. I was speaking to someone and they said that earlier we used to speak of the world in terms of what's going to happen in 2020, what's going to happen in 2030. But now the world has been divided into three categories: pre-COVID, PC, during COVID, and after COVID. So those are the times that we're dealing with, and it's an interesting situation that's building up everywhere. I am Udit Tyagi. I've been associated for Times Group for the past 6 to 7 years, and have been working with FICCI on multiple projects together. I've worked there in the capacity of an entrepreneur in residence, and now I'm handling the product and growth for Times News Network. And what we've observed in the past few years is that Indian market is going through very, very interesting times. Earlier, when we used to speak of languages, it used to be like a thing which could have been probably an icing on the cake or a good to have support. But now it's become a necessity. Specifically from a publisher perspective, we see so many publishers who are ditching English and just going all out for languages. There's immense development. There's immense tech innovation happening. There's ML happening there. There's AI happening just on language computation, which is brilliant. In fact, I was speaking to someone a while back, and on our own platform itself, the kind of CTRs which we observe for ad monetization change by language. And the interesting part is that, yes, they do change by language, but they're much better than English. Saying that, I'll probably, like everyone else, to introduce themselves, and then we can open the house to discussion. Probably we can start with Mr. Sameeran and then subsequently move on to others.
Thank you, Udit, and good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, a quick vote of thanks. I know this is before the program, but still, to FICCI ILIA for putting this together at really very short notice. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just briefly introduce myself and my company, and just make a couple of opening remarks. So to start off, my name is Sameera Gupta, and I've been with the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, or ICANN, for the last 6 years. And essentially, what ICANN does is to coordinate the unique identifiers of the Internet, which a very important part of that is the coordination of the domain name system. We are a technical organization, a nonprofit, and essentially one of the things that we are looking at is around bringing the next billion to the Internet. In other words, how do we enable the next billion population to come on the Internet? And obviously, billion is not engaging, and therefore, how do we make the DNS to non-ASCII scripts. So that's an area that we devote a large part of our work on, and therefore, rising from that are what we call internationalized domain names, like a .bharat address is an example of that, and some of the challenges that we have faced. So I will not get into more details, but yes, that is what we do. Udit, I just want to check. Would you like me to make a couple more opening remarks, or will we come back and do that a little later?
I would suggest that let's introduce ourselves,
Sure.
and then probably we can start with the opening remarks, and post that we could throw the house open for the discussion.
Fantastic. So yeah, so I'm good. I've just given you my introduction, and I'll hold my opening remarks for when I get the next.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sameera. I think Mr. Vivekanan, could you quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Vivek. I'm a co-founder of Reverie Language Technologies. I have been working on Indian language computing for 25 years now. The thing is that when we at Reverie, we've been working on Indian language solutions for more than 10 years now, and it's only in the recent times that we are seeing very strong growth in the need for language technologies, like non-English. And while we have been working on the complete stack of technology, starting from the basic enablement of languages in your devices or applications to the most advanced technologies that are powering the voice assistants and very complicated search and interaction modules, etc. But I think this is probably the best time when we need all of this to be able to reach out to people.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vivekanan. We'll move on to Mr. Sunil Kulkarni.
Udit, appreciate. Thanks a lot to FICCI India for arranging this webinar. My name is Sunil Kulkarni. I'm the founder CEO of Fidel, Softtech, and group of companies, including Linguasol. We are into language and technologies, solutions and services. At Linguasol, we have unique patented solutions that can that helps clients localize their websites or enterprise applications or any other digital assets in translating those in any languages without modifying the underlying source code or contents within a span of 6 to 8 weeks. We work with banks, we work with B2C brands. On the services front, we do a lot of vernacular or local language translations covering all Indian languages, as well as we are working with companies in creating vernacular data for training their AI engines, or say working with online companies for subtitling of their shows and videos. And so a lot of diverse services and solutions. I think this unprecedented pandemic also has created unique insights and opportunities where brands, banks have to rethink about their digital assets and strategies as how to take those to people who are locked down in their rooms. So I think this webinar came at the right time, and I hope to contribute today. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thanks a lot. Ms. Madhu would like you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Udit. Thanks a lot to FICCI ILIA for giving us the opportunity. My name is Madhu Sundaramurti. I am the MD of Suma Lingua Technologies APAC. We are a Poland headquartered language service provider and technology provider for all kinds of languages, based in 9 locations across the globe. Our core services are related to multilingual data services, multilingual managed services, and of course, localization and translation. We work with a lot of technology related to speech, related to navigation systems, where Indian languages have become very, very prominent and very popular. We are building our own technology to ensure that we can provide this service to the Indian community. And at this time, I feel it is very, very relevant that we reach out to the global community and the Indian community to ensure that the data that is there, that is available because of this current situation, is provided to people across all cities, different tier cities, so that they can use the data to make right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madhu. Thanks a lot. Miss Apurva, would you like to make an introduction? And probably I'd request you to start with your opening remarks as well, since you're the last one who's introducing yourselves.
Hi everyone. Thanks for making time and putting this webinar together. I'm Apurva. I'm Director of Products and Partnership at Haptic. We are a startup based out of Bombay and one of Reliance Jio's investments. We are primarily a conversation AI company. We've been married to the idea that technology and conversations can be super powerful. And we started out with this vision back in 2014. Today, we are one of the largest conversation AI companies in the world. We have processed close to 3 billion conversations. And, we've been able to put our technology to good use even through this pandemic, where we built out a WhatsApp helpline for Government of India, and it's overwhelming to see how technology can help disseminate information through these times of crisis. I myself lead the R&D division at Haptic. It's called conversation.ai. And the idea that we work at our R&D lab is that how do we kind of build the next layer of conversations? Today, what conversational AI can do and the use cases that it can solve for are largely around, some sort of structured chat automation. We've seen it that it can be super powerful in how you can disseminate information beyond the limits of human bias and human fatigue, and we are committed to that idea. And currently, we are leading our R&D efforts there. So the reason kind of we started working with languages is because we definitely see that as the next kind of leg in how conversational AI and technologies and conversations will contribute back. And it's going to be where you can automate conversations, not just in English, but all languages that are spoken around the world. And because there was inherent demand that we saw from our customers and users that we were working to have access to all of this information in their own languages, is when we started working in language technologies early last year. And compared to, I think, everybody else, everybody here has been working on the layers of language technologies. We come a lot more from the application side of the language technology, where we kind of implement those technologies at the last leg to convert them into products that kind of people use. And we've had our language stack for a while, and we made some commitments to it. But it has always been a very good to have kind of, like Funny was saying, that they've been working for a decade on this, and in the last couple of years, they saw some demand kind of increase in language technologies. We've seen an exponential growth in how people view these language technologies in actually last 2 months. Up till this point has always been a matter of an ROI calculation, that okay, if I add Hindi to my existing product, how much more business does that generate? But today, because of COVID, that entire equation has kind of changed. Because
Apurva, that's an interesting point that you're making, and I definitely, in fact, all of us on the panel over here agree that the thing, languages used to be a good to have, but now languages have become a must, a necessity for everyone. And in fact, we've seen so much, in fact, you mentioned and others also mentioned that we've seen so much stronger stance of different governments to provide information in all Indian languages. While we start opening up the discussion, I think Mr. Sameeran and a few others wanted to make a few opening remarks, and then let's just open the panel for broader discussion. Just simple rules to be followed. If anybody wants to make a point in between, please raise hands so that the individual gets the chance. Yeah. So yeah, Mr. Sameeran, you wanted to make some opening remarks there, right?
Yes, thank you, Udit. Just as a matter of consideration, I wanted to put on the table the fact that, as Apurva just mentioned, having a language, an additional language on your application or your service is, in the past, was good to have, and the fact that today it's a necessity. So let me just give you, if you may call it a case study, or actually something that took place only last week in Singapore. Some of you may be aware that the second round of COVID infections in Singapore, has afflicted some of the foreign workers living and working in Singapore. And many of these people, and many of these communities rather, are not English or Chinese speaking. And what ended up happening overnight, one of the medical students who had an interest in blogging and computers actually put up a website with FAQs and voice prompts on that website that helps the Singaporean doctor speak to the Bengali patient in this case, and ask certain questions. So it's really a translation website. Very simple when you go and see it, but very powerful under the circumstances. And it just, I don't want to talk more about that particular website, but I'm sharing this as an example of how sometimes more than ROI, the basic necessity of having these options, kind of trump all kinds of decision making. And there are many ideas that may come to developers' minds in India. We have the complexity of 22 languages plus English. So yes, so I would hope that, one of the learnings from this situation that we are all in today is to look at the array of technologies which my co-panelists over here use, and bring them into more applications, and therefore really reap the benefits of multilingual internet. Udit?
Thank you so much, Mr. Sameeran. In fact, as they say, technology is as powerful as the hands it is in. I mean, this small example of Singapore speaks so much about the light at the end of the tunnel. In fact, it helps us, sometimes just forgetting ROI, but going for basic things and focusing on these small niches can actually help solve problems right for the last mile audience, which is so good. Mr. Pani, would you want to add something here?
So yeah, the thing is that this particular situation has actually opened the eyes of most people into the necessity of having languages. uh, as like you mentioned, that from nice to have, people have started looking at this as a necessity, just because most of the conventional way of reaching out to people for services are just not there anymore. For example, the banks and many other services that used to reach them, they have started sending out messages saying that please use our online services, including to a point where even the call centers are sparsely staffed, and therefore even depending on the call centers are being discouraged. And at this time, therefore, many have attempted what was not attempted until this time. And so among the things that people have attempted is, like, making their call centers have IVRs in local languages, just because English most people can't speak. And whether so earlier, while people used to be extremely picky and choosy and like looking at ROI, today, because these have been extended out, the usage and the benefit of that has certainly been realized by most services. So yeah, so I would like to say is that this is actually a way, a natural way in which a lot of what we did not want to believe has suddenly come upon us to believe by force.
Absolutely. And the best way to bring about a change in the society, they say, is the natural way. But apparently, it's these tough times which have forced us to embrace this change where work from home is the new normal. Probably the aviation industry is going out of business. Next time, if I have to travel abroad or locally, I'll have to get a special permission. They'll say, is Zoom not working for you? So yeah, these are interesting times. And I want to extend this remark, which actually Mr. Pani said, that about information being spread, but which raises another concern, that is about misinformation, fear of isolation. Sunil, would you want to make a comment on the same?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Udit. So basically, I think we all agree that this is a very unprecedented crisis. Nobody thought that it would be this way. It's affecting nations, communities, companies, individuals, and economy as total. So I'll try to put my points across how it is affecting in general, as well as the industry, the localization industry. So if I look at the way it's affecting, basically a lot of information is getting created in English, but similar information is not about the pandemic, virus, how it gets affected. But the same information is not available in local languages, resulting in like misinformation, rumors, WhatsApp forwards, and so on. There's a fear of isolation and stigma around it, resulting in people trying to hide it. Again, all based on WhatsApp forwards and so on. As Vivek also mentioned, the earlier services are things that we were used to. Like, for example, a Swiggy boy or a delivery boy would just stop by, show the handy terminal to someone asking for address, reading that English or whatever. But that UI, now he no longer can ask anyone. Or earlier, we used to just approach a bank counter, asking the lady, asking to fill up the form, a lending form or whatever, mediclaim form. Now we cannot go there. And the same person, if he is getting locked at home, trying to check at the website, but it's all in English now. So now people have to rethink about these services, causing stress. So I might have some money in my bank, but I cannot access it because of language or because of the interface not available for me. And that's causing again stress. There is different government initiatives and stimulus that we hear about, but again, most of this information is in English, you see in media, and it's not available in local language. As an industry, now because we are a subset of this economy in general, we see again different effects. So for example, global brands that had, say, planned their expansion in India are taking backseat or postponing their plans, resulting in, say, a glut of work. Maybe the big companies have long-term contracts or connections, but if we look at a mid-size or small firm or individuals, there's suddenly anxiety about lack of work. I also see that there is stimulus or financial help made available by government for different sectors like agriculture, for example, or banking. But if you look at localization translation as an industry, it's not that much visible unless I think FICCI or somebody actually makes a case or lobbies around it. Lastly, at a language level, I think suddenly there's a lot of impetus on this health. And we see a lot of articles coming up, but because of lack of standardization in language, for example, ventilator as it is should be used, or shwasan sahayak, shwasan yantra. social distancing, samajik duri, samajik antar, people are using different, and then samajik duri could result in, again, different view for different. So I think many things are happening around how we can convert this crisis into an opportunity. I think that's a good timing, good for all of us to come together. And I think solutions will be there. But it's a huge effect in the economy and people at large. Thanks.
No doubt, the situation has made a very big impact on the economy and the anxiety and the different effects around it. But the interesting part is, and as you said, every problem is an opportunity. And situations like these make us think of new demands that are being created. And I'd like to open the floor to Madhu here and probably know what she thinks about this demand and supply, the two components of the industry that are being impacted. What are the opportunities she sees here?
Right. Thanks, Udit. I completely agree with all my fellow panelists. They've touched upon the right points. But I think there's something really unique about our industry. We really work well during crisis. We innovate, we come up with solutions. It's called Jugaad innovation, but we make it work, right? One such sector that is making it work and has been affected both negatively and positively is the interpretation sector, right? Conferences, events, on-site interpretation, everything has come to a standstill. Whereas suddenly you see a demand for over-the-phone interpretation, video interpretation, remote interpretation. I think Vivek also spoke about IVRs, right? What if there's nobody in the call center? Can we use phone interpretation for that? Of course we can. Lot of LSPs or language service providers whose revenues are driven by on-site interpretation report a significant drop in business, up to 70% or higher. LSPs, in the other hand, who already had a remote interpretation solution, are in place during this pandemic. They are offering better solutions for remote interpretation and also temporary alternatives at client locations. Virtual interpretation technology is booming and we are not far behind. Healthcare, call centers, sign language interpretation are gaining market share. We recently got a requirement for sign language, which was so rare, but that was for a hospital where somebody had to help somebody consult with a doctor, and sign language was required. Braille was required. So you can see how these things are getting innovated in the market. Where there is demand, there is always creative and innovative ways to generate supply. So people should not fear that there's not going to be jobs. Actually, now is a time where you can find the creative person in you and join this sector, especially if you're a linguist. If you can speak 3 or 4 languages and you don't need to really know English, you can speak 3 or 4 languages and actually connect with this sector. These trying times spark creativity and innovation. Crowdsourcing, it was big in the West and suddenly it has become big in the East. People with linguistic capabilities can be provided employment. Video conferencing apps are being used to connect and break the language barrier in hospitals. I think we spoke about that when we had the case study of Singapore. There are numerous job opportunities in the education sector where interpreters are required to provide online cloud-based learning. I don't know if you know, but Delhi CISCE, the education department, has recently organized a program with News 18 Bangla, where they teach students from class 3 to class 8 maths and English concepts, and they want to start other languages. And this is also being done in languages, vernac languages for other cities. There is a link provided. I can share that in the YouTube link. We at Sumalingve also have an in-house app where we collect data related to voice recognition. So people can actually join on the app, they can register themselves, work will come their way, it will come to their house in the safety of their house. So if you see, whenever there is a calamity, whenever there is a crisis, there is always demand and supply which will finally come and balance itself out. There will be new scenarios that will be created, there will be new technology that will be needed and people to support that technology.
I love the positivity Madhu is getting to the whole panel. I mean, it's like light at the end of the tunnel. And extending this conversation further, now the other point which comes very regularly is that right now in the current state of things, yes, there's a lot of opportunity as well, while there's a lot of chaos all around. But how can we make this whole stack, the whole tech stack, affordable for everyone? Because affordability is a real issue. And that's something which a lot of us face. Apurva, would you want to make a comment on the same? And then probably you can open it to others.
So what Udit just brought up is one of our pain points because we happen to be on the application layer of language technologies, right? And cost has been one of the factors that has stopped us from, like that, and that's where like the entire ROI calculation always comes back, and we've not made a lot of progress. So we have actually started investing in our own language stack. We've taken an approach which is based off English translation, and a large part of internet and large part of AI technologies are very, very well made for English. And as we wanted to move to Indian languages, we didn't want to lose all of that progress. We wanted to build on top of that. So at Conversation AI, we've been building that stack that enables us to move from English to a next set of Indian languages. There are a bunch of challenges, and but we are continuously investing in building those layers that help us extend technologies from English to different Indic languages out there. And our goal is from the current cost that is involved with manual translation, can we bring down the cost at least to 1/10 of what is out there? We definitely have to work very, very closely with everybody in the industry today. It just we just know very little about Indic languages, and it at this point when we went through a crisis, I think it was extremely saddening that we are not ready with those technologies today. We today can't scale our communication in all of those languages as much as this moment would have required, that we didn't build it fast enough, that we were ready at this point. But we've accelerated our investment in those directions. We have some layers of that stack ready today. They're very basic. We have basic transliteration kind of layer ready. We're building a translation layer on top of it. Very early for a full stack translation layer to work today. I think the quality that we need to get it through algorithms today, we are still not sort of in vicinity of like a production.
Thanks, Apurva. Those are interesting points you're making. I want to extend this discussion even further, and just want to make a slight remark here. For the audience who are watching us, at around 3:45 p.m., we'll open the whole panel for questions for 10 minutes. So please don't be disheartened. We'll address all the questions at around 3:45. And just taking the discussion ahead further, I wanted to mention a case here. In fact, since we're talking about the affordability of the stack and monetization related to languages, there was once an auto client which reached us, and as Times Group, we did an experiment with that auto client, and what we figured out was that when we used to run the same ad on any English site, and when we used to run the same ad on any Marathi or Hindi or Bangla site, the average CTR on Marathi was 3x that of 3 to 4x that of English. On Hindi was 2x that of English. And if we used to analyze how engaged the audience were when they were reading content in their own language, I mean, we could see the levels of 5x to 6x more engagement when they were reading it in their own native language, say in Marathi or in Telugu, and probably 3x when they were reading it in Hindi, comparing it to English. So those were some of the metrics. Point is how we could take them out to the market, make the monetization stack more savvy for language, make the whole tech stack more affordable, because again, it's a demand and supply. If the advertiser is interested, automatically the tech stack will start coming down, economies of scale will kick in, and the affordability would shoot up. So I wanted some more remarks on this from Mr. Kulkarni and Mr. Pani and Mr. Sameera, if you wanted to make any remarks on the same. Shall we start with Mr. Kulkarni?
Valid points. I think we all know that we see in recent times a lot of investment happening in regional news sites, regional contents. There is an attempt, and all these, because of this low-cost data packs, the proliferation of smartphones, I think a lot of people have joined the internet revolution, or on the internet. and availing different services. The more the scale, obviously advertisers, and it's of interest for them as well, or service providers, to launch on those platforms. And obviously we have seen increased buying patterns for e-commerce clients, for ourselves, or engagement for content base. And I think your point is extremely valid, where the moment investment starts coming in these platforms, obviously the tech stack as well as the language stack can trickle down. Yeah, Vivek.
So yeah, your point is so valid. I'd like to, however, make one particular example here. That so this is like goes back to the very early days when we were starting up. At that point in time, we were trying to help businesses go multilingual. But in the year 2009, most of the businesses did not want to go multilingual. And like most of us have said that, the trend towards going multilingual is appearing more recent. While we kept on struggling with that, what we were being told is that, well, people can't consume them because they do not have access to computers or mobile phones that can even show local languages in those. So we went back to manufacturers, and the first smartphones with Indian language support, Android, was released in India with all languages, which we were enabling. And when that happened, suddenly the sales of those models which had all languages support were the highest selling phones, breaking all records of all times. So that is like a latent demand that always existed. But what happens is that in businesses, people who take decisions are not the ones who are the end users, and therefore they sometimes continue to delay that. Whereas that demand has always existed. And like you mentioned, that the 3x or the 5x sort of experiments have been done multiple times, and that has actually proven. In the more recent times, people continue to advocate that video consumption is the highest. But with this sort of a situation, we have again seen that actually the readership has taken over everything else. The local language readership itself has grown phenomenally big right now.
I think Mr. Kulkarni wanted to make a point there. Before we
Yeah,
move to Mr.
I think
Sameera,
just to add to Vivek and your earlier points, what we have seen is uh, uh, from an affordability perspective, or for more distinct perspective, we have seen lately business models changed from the earlier, say, technology licensing, or say per word translations, to more of a usage based or a technology consumption based, or a view based kind of pricing, or different models, whereby again on a longer term the consumer benefits, the client benefits, and as a technology stack provider we have a more longer cycle, but nevertheless we see a continuous usage. Yeah,
thanks, Sunil. Mr. Sameeran, you wanted to make a point there, yeah?
Yes, thank you, Udit. So let me address a couple of issues. Although I must confess, I'm not a marketing person, but what I understand by reading various data is that, if you look at the Indian economy that consumes, I think the focus has primarily been on the first 200, 220, 230 million people who, all of us in the room can identify. And that goes back to what Vivek was talking about, the CEO who makes a decision is not the consumer. So we look for people, in quotes, I would say, like us, to deal with. But in fact, the market is much larger. And the second challenge that this market has had is, okay, I may be from Bengal, and somebody may be from Orissa, and somebody may be from Punjab and from Tamil Nadu, or wherever. We are far more mobile than we were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. How do you locate these pockets? Okay, and this again, this pandemic, the COVID pandemic, has actually given rise to that. Unfortunately, when you come to the issue of the migrant workers who are trying to go home, or who are trying to find food, how do you reach those people? And it's something that Apurva mentioned earlier, that maybe we should have been ready for something like this. And what I would like to submit respectfully over here is that it's not to wait for a pandemic for us to. I know it's a great opportunity for finding solutions, and we are at our Jugaru best perhaps, but let us also take a deep breath and step back and say that, for all times, what is the best we can do, for our people across the country? And some of these things can spend money, other things can bring value. So we have to look at it in a more holistic fashion. So yes, we need to look beyond the 200, 250 million people who we believe consume things, and look far beyond to see who is it that we are missing.
That's a very nice remark you've made, Mr. Sameeran. How to look beyond those 200, 250 people who we can always, or 250 million people who we can always spot in the room, and how to reach to every nook and corner, and how to actually look for satisfaction and delivering actually value beyond ROI. Well, while ROI is also equally important, as the market economics says, but yeah, how to deliver value is the most important bit. So probably due to paucity of time, I'll request everyone to move on to their last remarks, and then probably we can open up the panel to questions. Since the most positive remarks were made by Madhu, I'll probably save her for the last bit and probably start from others. So yeah, Mr. Kulkarni, Mr. Pani, and Apurva, please.
Okay, let me go first then.
Yeah.
I think, I think what is coming out very clearly is that languages are important, specifically now that we've been put in a context where we have to look beyond the 250 million. That's not the audience that we are targeting to. I think we have reached a point where it's very easy to bring out the importance, but it's about time where we start looking at how do we exponentially charge up our progress in language technologies, where it is, and have like proper collaborations between tech players and the manual input players, so that we can speed up this process, and start making it a lot more affordable than it is today, so that when this urgency of having to cater to the entire population goes down, we actually come out of this with something that can stay with this industry for a lot longer.
Thanks, Apurva. Mr. Pani, over to you.
Yeah, so I would probably say that whatever that we are doing right now, I mean, it's not only that the consumers are reaching out is felt necessary, but I think the best things are that I haven't still been able to find a single thing negative about Corona, right? So this has accelerated everything. Like some of the things that Madhu mentioned, that innovation at its best. Even if I look at languages, but I would like to, when I'm mentioning innovation, I would like to put that slightly aside. We have seen that just for healthcare, every day in India, 5,000 people die because of poor healthcare facility. Today, we have seen that unprecedented amount of healthcare facility has become affordable and available, right? The same sort of innovations have actually gone across every kind of service to reach out to the masses. So when we are talking about languages, even that has happened. And I think it's a great feeling for all of us.
Well said. Well said. So yeah, Sunil, over to you.
Yeah, I personally see, again, this as a carrying forward points from Vivek and Apurva. I see this is a very good trigger. For past few years, banks, insurance firms all have been disappointed with their net banking or mobile banking kind of usage. This is a time when they are seeing huge unprecedented growth in their own, and this is a good time for them to leverage vernacular and take their services to the last mile actually. because of this Jan Dhan Yojana and everything, a lot of people have now got on this mobile, but they need that last mile support. Secondly, this is a good time for actually again government also to do some initiatives, because I feel like we have some exposure to Japan, where we have seen like critical areas or services in banking, finance, healthcare and medicine, where government has mandated that the service is provided in local language, because prescriptions are written so that the user understands what's written. So there, I think if 4 or 5 sectors help are mandated with a local language mandate, I think that creates a 200-300 crore business for SMEs and translators, I think. So that's again a view. Overall, I think it's a good trigger. I'm very positive that technology and services put together, good will come out of it. Thanks.
Japan's a very good example you stated. Thank you so much. Madhu, over to you.
Thanks, Sudhit. I'll take on from where Sunil left. He's actually very right about the way he wants to bring solution, technology, and services together. A couple of words I have been left with in this discussion: technology, accessibility, investment, and socio-economic solution. I think that is very important. And the group that has collected here today is categorized in each one of these words. There is technology, there's accessibility, there's FICCI ILIA, which is about socio-economic growth. And if we come together and decide that we want to provide a tech-enabled solution, which is not just accessible, but also can be used, I won't use the word cheaper, but with more, is more user-friendly, then we will get where we want to get. Again, Sameera said, let's not wait for the pandemic. Let's start preparing now itself, which is extremely well said. I was in a conference recently where somebody left these remarks at the end. They said, data is the new oil. So we have to make sure as a country, we collect as much as data as we can in this given situation and reuse this data to come up with technology that is accessible to all and has a socio-economic value to it.
Thank you so much, Madhu. Data is the new oil, and that can be a very interesting note to wrap up the whole panel discussion. I'm opening up the whole panel to questions. In fact, one question that we've received from Mr. Jitendra Jain is, what is your opinion on language service providers of our country? Why do they compromise with the quality to save money? I think some of it we've discussed, but I think some of it is an ROI versus cost available question. Does anyone want to take it?
Okay, I would like to take it, although I'm quite sure that Madhu is a better person answering this one. So I'll make my answer short, and Madhu, you can add to it. I have been saying that the profession of translation. So in the past, the profession of translation was one of the most respected one. In fact, they were the second largest, second highest paying, profession. But so apart from the pay, I would say that that is one profession that is actually dealing with knowledge. And with the amount of translations that a translator usually does across domains, the kind of encyclopedic knowledge that they end up gaining makes them far superior to most other professions. So that is a very respectable profession that I would say. The people who end up focusing on cost savings and end up compromising on quality of translations are probably, I would say, not looking at it, or they are not really looked at by their employers the right way. Madhu, you should add to it.
Yeah, I agree. Also, quality is very relative. Something that is 100% for me may not be 100% for you. We always, at Sumalingve, we always ask our customers, what is the quality you are looking at? What is its end purpose? What is it going to serve? And based on that, we decide on the quality. If you want something that reads new as a content that has been written for the user who's reading it, of course, it will be priced high. If you want to cut costs and provide something that is just translated from one language to another, there will be quality challenges. So quality is something relative. As a user, as a customer, find out what is your threshold for good quality. And then based on that, you decide your price and your translator.
Thanks so much, Madhu. I think the next question I would like to raise here is by Sangamitra Mohanty. She said that speech to speech is the ultimate solution, but needs different base structural background. How far are we ready for it? Who wants to take this one?
I'm not sure if there are other companies who or other members who have been working on speech, but we have. I can take it.
Please go ahead, Mr. Pannu.
Okay. So, yeah, Sangamitra, you're right that speech to speech requires different base structural background, but the technology has also been maturing very rapidly. Although the expectations from that are very different. For example, let's say if there is a speech that has been spoken by our Honorable Prime Minister, and you would want that his Hindi speech should be also available in Telugu, whereas his voice, tonality, accents, everything being retained as his, then that is a dream that is not yet true. And therefore, to be able to reach there, there are no structural bases that are still available to be able to even train models. However, what we have, done recently, of course, voice cloning, etc., are possible, and therefore you can produce something that is very near to a voice, but not definitely not to the emotions and tonality and many other things. So recently, whatever that Prime Minister Modi ji was speaking, and several other communications where for information dissemination, the videos were created. So we have tried creating voice-to-voice translations with a 2x time, that is for 1 hour of audio speech that can be actually done in about 2 times the time, and it mostly happens automatic.
Thank you so much. I think another question which has been raised by Prachiti Talathi is that she, as a freelancer and a small team of translators, what are the opportunities she can see to encash this whole situation? She has a small team of translators, and so she's saying, what is the best opportunity to encash at this point? Who would like to take that one?
I can take it up, Udit. Prachiti, there are lots of LSPs that are always looking to onboard quality translators. Again, quality is relative. Please do connect with language service providers. Most of us are here on the panel. You can see some of them also on the YouTube link. Connect with them. Also, if you check on LinkedIn, you will find a lot of language service providers have links to onboard you directly as a vendor with small tests. Do connect with them. There is opportunity galore available, especially for Indic languages, for big volume projects, for small size projects, and you will really gain with experience working on different projects, and you can build up your capability and competency on that. Reach out to Suma Lingve. We always empanel resources. Everybody else on this panel, they're always looking out for resources. Each one of us is a potential client.
Thank you so much, Madhu. I think due to paucity of time, we might not be able to proceed ahead with questions. So I think I'll just put in some closing remarks out here. So I think the broad crux of the story is how to expedite. While COVID has been happening, but COVID has expedited a lot of things. Yes, we should have been prepared. Earlier, we're not prepared. But how things can be expedited, and the opportunity that has been created for all the language providers out here, for all the LSPs, for all the freelancers, there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. There is definitely the last mile delivery which can be achieved through languages, through translations, through transliterations. So let's be positive. It's a phase that we're going through. Let's see the positive in it. Thank you so much, everyone, esteemed panelists, audience, for joining us. Thanks a lot, guys. With this, I'll close the session. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Udit.
Thanks a lot, Udit. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot for the viewers. Yeah.
Thank you, Udit, and thank you all the esteemed panelists for this session. Good takeaways. Like people mentioned, we should not wait for such a thing to happen to be a Jugaad innovation. So, lot many things which can be done. This does have a very, very big opportunity in all the areas to contribute for the country as well as for the job, and lot we can do collectively. So with these words, I would like to thank all the panelists. I'd like to thank all the viewers who have contributed to this. I know there have been many questions which were there, but because of the paucity of time, we couldn't answer all the questions. We definitely will take up in the next series, which will be come out soon. There's another webinar which is planned by a group next week. We'll come back to you with the details. We'd like to wish everybody to remain safe and well, and also like to request and everybody that hope you have downloaded the Arogya Setu app. That is something which the government is requesting everybody. That's very important for your own safety and family safety. Kindly do that. And with these words, thank you, moderator, and thank you, panelists and the participants. We look forward to meet you soon, and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.